Hi. Gay is not sin, and Jesus isn't asking the gay person to change and be straight. Rise and be healed. Jesus heals for today. We're living in the last days, and some really exciting things are about to happen. The world as we know it is kind of changing before our very eyes. It's kind of interesting. This year here in 2008, things have changed more than perhaps any other time. Now, those of us that's been been around here for a while, have some idea of things that change life as we know it. But are things different today? They might very well be. Are we close to the snowball effect? As we see in things get, as it were, worse, is it going to get to a point where it can't return? So far we had many false starts. Antichrist wants to get his kingdom going. He wants a one world government. He wants his man in power. But God has his time to have this happen. And so Satan cannot get Antichrist's kingdom started. He can't get his man in power. There's lots of things Satan just, no matter how hard he tries, he could get people to have their finger on the nuclear bomb button, ready to push it, and their finger will fall off or something if it's not time. Usually it never gets that far, and there's, of course, we don't know some of the things that happen, but generally speaking, that only happens in movies. However, we can't get it started, and there's a good reason why. There's a couple of things that just absolutely has to be in place before Antichrist can have his kingdom, at least set up as with a one world leader, what we call the Antichrist. And that is, the two witnesses have to meet each other. If the two witnesses don't even have a clue who each other are, you're not even needing to think about Antichrist's kingdom's about to start. However, we're probably pretty close to the day that these two have met. Maybe they've met and they just haven't told anybody. But they need to be together for a little while to get to know each other, to get a strategy going, as it were. Usually when a couple of people or something, go out to do something, they kind of have to know what they're doing so they can do it. What kind of friendship they develop? The Bible doesn't get real clear on that. It's probably pretty close. After all, they're going to get killed by Antichrist. And so, how long do they need? Well, I'm not going to say this is exactly what God is saying, but God is telling me, anyway, that they need to get to know each other for about 2.5 years. The total time they know each other is a minimum of 6 years before they die. And so that has to give them 2.5 years before they start their ministry. Because their ministry lasts 1,260 days. And this is very important. This is what is not taught, at least not very often, and that is this 1,260 days is fairly specific. Somehow or another, we've gotten this notion that Christians are going to miss the tribulation entirely. We got some people that think the rapture will take place when it's all done. And others think that it'll happen in the middle of the tribulation period. But there's a lot of things that's got to be figured out before we could, as we're trying to put pieces of the puzzle together, to figure out when the tribulation actually will begin and will we go through it. And some of the things that we need to understand is the depth that the Bible goes into when it talks about God's people and they're disobedient. And the elements around in those stories and those explanations and details the Bible gives to say there's coming a time because of God's people's disobedience is so great that they're going to need extraordinary measures to get their act cleaned up. To get an idea what kind of shape the church is in today, we need to read Leviticus chapter 26. And we read down to the 4th level of disobedience. Now, as much as you want to or wish, these are not events that took place in Old Testament days. There's things that is described here and amongst other places in the Bible that can only be the church. Israel is out of the picture until the very last moment, where in a moment they see whom they pierce. A great deal of the Bible is talking about the church in the last days. There's not going to be a magical, huge revival as soon as the rapture happens, and now all of a sudden the world's got lots of Christians that are so horribly disobedient that God got to do something to correct them. It's good to fit pieces together, and just like we hear recently in the last several years, and of course it goes on back, but we get this History Channel and the Learning Channel and stuff like that, and if you can read between the lines in them, you could get a lot of interesting facts. And when we're finding out about physics and the universe and things like that, some people's theories are really good, and for the most part they work pretty good, but there's always seems to be something that says it doesn't explain this or that. And that's same in Christianity. We think we got good stories and good answers to certain things, but there's pieces of the puzzle that just can't be explained with the current day theories. One of them is, what are the two witnesses really doing? Is the tribulation just to get rid of bad folk? Well, it's not. It's to shake up the church, to spank the church, to wash away their false doctrines and their filthy rags of what they call righteousness. And people, our time is running out. This time is about to come. Are you ready for the shaking? There are so many deceptions. One major deception is the modern translations. So you need to be ready. First step for those of you that don't believe, say, Jesus, I believe that you're the Son of God, and that God rose you on the 3rd day. So ask Jesus to come into your heart and forgive you your sins. A simple prayer. Now rise and be healed. If you have a sickness, put your hand towards this monitor. In the name of Jesus, be healed.